Alright, let's build our first app. Now we're gonna build an app for a fictitious oil company called Real Oil and Gas, and we're going to build a Salesforce application. So this is what salespeople would use to create their leads, their opportunities, and so on. Right. So the first thing you notice when you use Rapid4 is that you don't need anything else but your browser. And I've got Firefox open here. I'm gonna do a login. Once you're logged in, you can see all the other apps that you've built. But in this demo, of course, we're going to create a new app from scratch. So I'm going to click on the green icon here to do that. And I'm going to give our app a name. So let's give it a name like Real Oil and Gas Salesforce app. When I've done that, I'm now able to open the application. And I can see, I can create forms for the application. I can create views and so on. This is a Salesforce application, so obviously you need a way for the salespeople to key in their leads and opportunities. So let's create a new form just for that. I'm going to call it the opportunity form. And when I create the form, I can start designing the layout by clicking on this link. The form designer is a pretty simple layout. On the left side, I've got a panel that shows me all the different field types that I can create. And on the right side, I can see the preview of my form. I'm going to create a field called the customer name, which is going to be a single line text field. So when I create the field, it's going to show up on my preview on the right side, as you can see here. Then I'm going to create a few more fields. A remarks field, which is a multiple line text field. When you create it, it'll show up on the right side as well. Let's create a few more. The type of customer, which in this case could be one of two options: enterprise or government agency. And notice that I chose vertical, which means that the field will appear as a vertical radio button. So I can select between these two options. And now the next thing you'll notice is that you can actually drag any of these fields and place it anywhere you want, like this. Let's create a few more. Deal size, which is a money field. Attachments, which is a file upload field. And the expected date of closing field, which indicates when the deal is expected to close. And there we go. I can also make some of these fields mandatory just by clicking on the icon here, like so. So let's attach a workflow to this form. Obviously, for the salesperson, when they create and fill up this opportunity form, they need to route it for approval from the sales manager and so on. So let's add a workflow. This is the workflow designer page, and I'm going to add an approval request bubble. Now in this approval request bubble, I'm able to send it off to any one of these roles from Active Directory, and I can specify how long this person is given to approve. So it could be in days, hours, or minutes. So I'm going to click on add to workflow, and you're going to see I'm going to add another level of approval. So let's send it to the MD, and when I do this, I see another bubble attached to the first one, and I can drag that second bubble a bit to the left as such. And I'll add one more to the GM, and I'll attach that bubble to the first one. And I'll have something like this, which I'm going to drag on to the right side. So I can define conditional flow, wherein perhaps if my amount field from the form exceeds $50,000, it needs the MD to approve, and if it was below, it wouldn't need the MD to approve. It would just flow on to the general manager. To do this, I'm going to click on the arrow here, and I'll click on the properties of the arrow, and I'll be able to see a wizard where I'll see all the fields from my form. I'm going to look at deal size, and as deal size is above $50,000, and I'll put a little caption here, above 50K. That's gonna appear on my arrow here. And on the right side, I'm gonna do the same thing, but the opposite. So with the wizard, I'll select the deal size, and that's gonna be below 50K. And I'll put a caption for this as well. And that will show up on my next arrow. Now let's try out what we've built so far. But before we do that, let's give our app a little flavor. I'm gonna go into the look and feel of the app, and I'm going to upload an icon for the app. So I've got an icon here for that. It's a PNG file, and I've uploaded it. And you'll see that I have a few different backdrops to choose from, but I want my own one, so I'm gonna upload a custom wallpaper here. So once I do this and save the changes, I'm now ready to run my app. When you click the run button, this is what your end users will see. It already comes with a full-blown user authentication module built in, and it supports Active Directory, and it also supports Rapid4 authentication. So when you sign in, you'll see the landing. So let's open your form and do a submission. So I'm going to create the opportunity from here, and you can see the form that you've created earlier show up. So let's fill this up. So notice that you're also able to upload attachments. It could be TIFF images, PDF, Microsoft Word documents, and so on. And you're able to preview the document inside the form without opening or launching an external viewer. So if you have multiple pages in the document, you'll see them on the left side here as well. I could also enlarge the document if I wanted to. And finally, I'm going to indicate the expected date of closing, which is going to be today at 3 p.m. And I'll submit. And if I have any urgent remarks, I can put that in here as well. And there you go. Now every submission has an ID number, and if I wanted to check my previous submissions, I could click on my submissions and I could see the one that I just created. And if I click on this submission, I can see whatever I submitted earlier, and if I scroll down to the bottom here, I can see the audit trail of that submission, which is you can see it's gone to the sales manager, which happens to be Kairu in this case. I could also see a visual indication of where I am in the workflow by clicking on that button, and I can see the white bubble tells me where I am. So it's waiting for the sales manager, which is Kairu, to approve. So Kairu gets notified by email, he gets a notification on his watch, on his phone, and so on. And when he signs in to the portal, and I'm signing in as Kairu right now, you'll see that in his inbox, there's one item waiting for his submission. When he clicks on that item, it brings him to that submission, and he's now able to approve or reject your submission. Now Kairu has a few options here. He can approve or reject, or he can also post a message to clarify further on this submission. So if he has some questions about this submission, he could post a message here, and he could say, "What's this all about?" And that message will show up in a little forum at the bottom here where everyone else can post a reply to Kairu and discuss among the different workflow participants. He's also able to annotate on individual fields on the form. So if he had a problem with the customer name, for example, he could click on that icon here and he could put some annotation here as such. And when he does this, it shows a little annotation here with Kairu's name on it and the timestamp, and it attaches it to that particular field on the form. So this is great because when you have a workflow with many different people have different colors. So for Kairu, it's orange. For the next person, it could be purple. And as you go on, you'll see a big form with all these annotations all in one single page where it's easy to filter out and see. So Kairu can also bounce this submission back to the original submitter, which is the salesperson, if there was a mistake to be corrected on the form. He could also reassign this particular case to another person to approve on his behalf. There's also escalation and delegation features in the workflow as well. So let's just say Kairu is okay to go ahead. So he clicks on approve and he puts in his remarks. Notice that Kairu can also attach his signature if he wanted to. So the workflow now goes to the next person, which happens to be Chow. So I'm going to log in as Chow. And when Chow logs in, you'll see that he has an inbox, an item is an inbox too. So when he opens that item, if you scroll down, you'll see under the audit trails that Kairu has already approved, and he has put his remarks here, and it says looks good. And now it's gone to, and it's not a Chow. Chow is the MD, and if you were to look at the workflow diagram, you'll see that it's now here at the MD, which is Chow. And the reason why it's gone here and not the other side is because of the arrow, which states the condition of amount of above 50K. And if you look at the amount that you submitted, it is above 50K. So that's how the workflow works. So I'm going to now switch back to my designer window so that I can add more functionality to this application. So now that I got a form and workflow running, I want to build a report. I'm going to create a view called the amount of sales by type of customer. So perhaps you want to see the amount of sales that by different types. So you have enterprise, you also have government agencies. You want to know how much sales were captured for each of these types. So I'm going to create a chart for this. When I've done this, all I gotta do is just hook it up to the data source, in which case I want the type of customer and I also want the deal size. And I can go up to the chart settings. I can tell the system what kind of chart I want. I have a lot of different types of charts to choose from. And I'm gonna go for the column 3D chart. I wanna see the sum of the deal size by type of customer. So that's my Y and X axis. And this will be in Singapore dollars, for example. So if I switch back to my app and I refresh the app, you'll notice that I now have a charts area. If I click on the new chart, I can see that item that you can see the chart show up, and you can see for enterprise customers, I've got 80,000 Singapore dollars. So if I create another opportunity for the government agencies, for example, Ministry of Health, you'll see that the chart will immediately reflect that. So the charts are all real time. So over time, you can build many of these charts and you can put them all together into a dashboard. So here's an example of a dashboard that combines a few different charts. So as you can see from here, I've got a chart that can even show you how many tasks that Alim has. He has 55 items here to approve and he's late for 4 of them. So late items can show up as a blue bar. You can even do a drill down where you can see his performance over the last 12 months. So which case in March, he had 10 items and he was late for 6 of them. So in similar fashion, you could also go back into your app and add a calendar, for example, and you could say, build a calendar called expected closing dates, and then do the same thing. You hook it up to the data source, in which case I want to show the customer name and the expected date of closing, and hook up the fields. And once I've done this, I now have a calendar which I can see in a month view, a week view, or so on, and you'll be able to visualize the data on a calendar. So here I've got my previous submission ABC. If I double click on it, it brings you back to that particular submission. So calendars are obviously useful. For example, if you're building an app to manage training courses in your company, you could visualize all the training dates on a calendar. If you're building an app for HR, for example, you can see all the interview dates on a calendar. Now let's switch back to our app designer. Now, back to the form that you created earlier. I have it in English, but what if I wanted it to display in Japanese, for example? I could translate my form by clicking on this link here, and I can translate my form to any of these languages right here. And there is Japanese, for example. And if I translate the form to Japanese, it uses the Microsoft Translator APIs to do that translation one time, and your form is now in Japanese. Since your form was translated by machine, you could also just click on any of these fields and change the translations if it was incorrect. So the good thing about translation is that you have the same form but with many different versions of it in different languages, but it's actually in the database it's just one form. And this obviously saves you time when you want to roll out applications that serve a global audience. So the next thing that I want to talk about is how you can also generate documentation in Rapid4. So if you click over to the form, you are able to generate the documentation in Microsoft Word format, and you'll see that it exports the field names, the field types, the sizes, whether it's compulsory or not, everything into a Word document. And even the workflow is also captured in this documentation together with the bubbles and who they're sent to and their permissions and so on. All right, the next thing I want to show you is how easy it is to get your app onto a mobile device. So I'm going to flip back over to my form designer over here. Now I've just added 2 more fields, the signature and photo field, and I can switch this whole form over to a different device just by clicking on this button and just selecting the device that I want to publish to. So I'm going to publish over to the iPhone 6, and immediately the whole form will now reflect that of an iPhone 6. That was all you needed to do. So now let's take a look at the iPhone. So I've got my iPhone here. Rapid4 apps are native apps. So whatever you build will run natively inside the Rapid4 app. So if you notice the purple icon, you tap on it, you'll be able to click start to begin the app. So the first thing you'll see is a set of banners. So these serve as announcements that you may want to circulate within the company. These banners are also editable, so whenever you change them, they will reflect on both iOS and Android phones. Now when you tap the top left corner icon, you'll see a bunch of options in the menu. So assuming you've already logged on, you can do a sync, and that will sync all the apps from your Rapid4 instance into the mobile device. And of course, at the bottom here, you'll see our real oil and gas app. When you tap on the icon, you'll be able to see our opportunity form, and you'll be able to fill up the opportunity details. When you try to fill up a date field, you'll notice it uses the native date selector. For drop-downs and radio buttons, you will see a native selector. Rapid4 also supports signature fields. So when you tap the signature field, you'll be able to use your fingers to sign on the device. Like this. And when you're done, click the Done button, and your signature is captured in one of the fields. So for a delivery service app, for example, you could get the customers to sign on the mobile device and have a signature route back to the workflow. Now, Rapid4 supports photo fields too. You can take a photo of anything. And when you're done, you can attach the photo to the submission. And this becomes part of your form. This will work great for incident reporting apps where you need to take a photo of the incident and route it back to the workflow. Now you can also look at charts in the app. So for higher level management, they could look at the charts, beautiful charts, they can interact with the charts, and they can also control how they look and feel like on the mobile device. Last but not least, we also have modules that let you use the camera to scan and recognize 1D and 2D barcodes. This will work great if you're trying to build an asset management app, for example. Now let's take a look at how we can approve with the watch. Okay, so I've got the watch currently open, and if you tap on this yellow icon, you can see that I'm currently logged in as Kairu. So when there's an incoming task from the workflow, it comes in like this with a sound, and he clicks on the view button, and you're able to then scroll to see the form that just came in with the data. And when you want to approve, you click on the respond button, and you'll see the approve icon. When you click on it, you can specify some remarks, and when you're done with that, click the confirm button, and that will approve your submission. With the watch, you can also view high-level application statistics. You can drill down and view high-level information such as the sales pipeline, for instance. So back in my app designer, I could also add a map view. So here I've got a map view that was already added, salesperson location. So when I switch over to my app, I can now see a map view over here. And if I were to open the map view, you'll see something like this. So the map view uses Google Maps, and every minute the mobile device that is running Rapid4 is going to submit latitude and longitude data to the server, where it's going to map out the route that the salesperson has taken from start to finish. It can indicate the amount of time traveled, as you can see here. It can even indicate if a specific person is spending too much time in a specific area, in which case green colored pins will be dropped on the map. I can also integrate Rapid4 to external systems. So if you click on external data sources under the app designer, you can see that I've created one that integrates to Salesforce. And if I open up the Salesforce API, I can see that I've defined certain parameters for the integration to Salesforce. You can also download and install other plugins from the Rapid Store, which is an online marketplace provided by Rapid4. And you can see other systems here like SharePoint, SAP, and so on. Now, once you've installed the plugin, you can go back to the form designer and click on the data source icon of any field on the form, and that pulls up the API. And you are able to see all the different functions provided by the plugin, and you can see that you can grab contacts, leads, opportunities from salesforce.com. And for example, for this dropdown, I want to grab the contact information, and I have all the different fields for that contact record, and I want to grab the email address, and I'm going to store ID as the value of the dropdown. I'm going to click Save Changes, and this purple icon here shows that this field is now connected to salesforce.com and will now retrieve a list of emails and show it in the drop-down list here. And if you were to switch over to your app, you'll notice that your customer drop-down now shows all the emails from salesforce.com. In just 15 minutes, we've built a fully functional app with many rich features. Using Rapid4, with a small team, you can scale up to build many complex web and native mobile applications that feature very complex business rules in the shortest amount of time possible.